We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
Tourists marooned on Thai islands hunker down as tropical storm Pabuk strikes the kingdom, forcing airports and ferries to close and bringing power blackouts, heavy rains, and massive sea swells.
The Democratic-controlled U.S. House of Representatives has voted to end a partial government shutdown, but the move looks certain to be vetoed by President Donald Trump.
China's lunar probe sends back its first photos of the far side of the moon.
And Iglesia Ni Cristo members hold aid to humanity in Australia after recent bushfires there.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Tourists marooned on Thai islands hunkered down Friday as tropical storm Pabuk struck the kingdom. It forced airports and ferries to close, and it brought power blackouts, heavy rains, and massive sea swells. While torrential rain and strong winds were expected to affect more than a dozen other provinces, Nakhon Si Thammarat and Surat Thani, home to the tourist islands of Koh Samui, Koh Tao, and Koh Phangan, are expected to be hardest hit. Disaster mitigation officials said one person was already killed from the crew of a fishing boat that capsized in strong winds near the coast of Patani province. Another crew member was missing. A Russian man drowned off Koh Samui on Wednesday. The meteorological department said on Friday morning that waves 3 to 5 meters or 10 to 16 feet high were possible in the Gulf of Thailand on the east coast and 2 to 3 meters high in the Andaman Sea on the west coast. It warned of strong winds and storm surges on the Gulf side and said all ships should stay berthed on land through Saturday.
Hordes of tourists leave an airport in Surat Thani province, famed for its tourist-bound islands, as Thailand's coastal south braces for the worst tropical storms in decades. Pabuk, the first tropical storm in decades to strike during the peak holiday season, made landfall on Friday evening, with the eye passing over Nakhon Si Thammarat further to the south. In Nakhon Si Thammarat, the airport was closed and authorities made rounds on Friday morning, urging people to leave before roads are blocked, while in the Gulf of Thailand, the winds accompanying the potentially damaging storm churned up high waves and gusts. Louis said Pabuk has been described as unusual because it is taking place outside of the monsoon season for this part of the world, noting that the last time something happened like this happened in Thailand was 3 decades ago.
Yesterday we just went back from Koh Samui. Yeah, and because we plan to come back from Samui today, but the pier, they said they will stop on yesterday afternoon, so stop. People go back, but some people that stay in Samui, they stole the food, something like that, because before they said 2 weeks ago it's have water flood, and they said in the new this storm, Pabuk storm, will come very, very bad, so some people that stole the food.
How is the...
In other news, the United States warned its citizens Thursday they could face arbitrary action by authorities when they visit China following the detention of a number of Canadians. Updating a travel advisory, the State Department maintained its previous guidance that Americans should exercise increased caution in China, but stopped short of discouraging visits. While the language was largely the same as earlier, the State Department warned of arbitrary enforcement of local laws. sudden prohibitions on exiting the country, and harassment of U.S. citizens of Chinese heritage. In most cases, it said U.S. citizens only become aware of the exit ban when they attempt to depart China, and there is no method to find out how long the ban may continue. It added U.S. citizens under exit bans have been harassed and threatened. It also advised Americans to look out for last-minute security checks and curfews in Xinjiang and Tibet, two minority-dominated regions where Beijing has sought to impose strict control. 13 Canadians have been detained in China following the arrest on December 1 of a senior executive from Chinese telecoms equipment giant Huawei. Ottawa said Thursday, with 8 subsequently released. U.S. prosecutors have accused Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei CFO, of misleading banks about transactions linked to Iran, putting the banks at risk of violating sanctions.
Why should people believe you that you won't breach your bail?
China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs responds to the United States issuing a travel advisory and reports of Canadian detainees. He said the travel warning issued by the U.S. does not stand. He said China always welcomes foreign citizens, including U.S. citizens, to visit China and protects their security and legal rights, including freedom of entry and exit.
想强调一下，中国是法治国家，中国依法维护在华外国公民的安全与合法权益。至于你提到的点到名字的这2个人，我们在这已经多次说过，这2个加拿大公民是因为涉嫌从事了违反危害中国国家安全的活动，而被依法采取了强制措施。
The updated travel advisory follows the detentions of 2 Canadians in China who said they were suspected of harming China's security. Michael Korvig, a former diplomat and an advisor with the International Crisis Group ICG think tank, and businessman Michael Spavor were detained after Canadian police arrested the Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou at the request of the U.S. China's top prosecutor said on Thursday the 2 men had without a doubt violated the law.
Meanwhile, Russian prosecutors have charged an American ex-Marine detained in Moscow last week with espionage. His lawyer said Thursday the latest in a series of spying accusations between Moscow and Washington. The tribunal has ordered the conditional detention of Paul Whelan after he was charged. His lawyer, Vladimir Sherebenkov, was quoted as saying by the news agency RIA Novosti. Sherebenkov said he had appealed the ruling and asked for Whelan to be released on bail pending the start of the trial. Born in Canada, Whelan was arrested last Friday while carrying out an act of espionage, according to Russia's FSB Domestic Security Service. His family has denied he is a spy, saying he was visiting Moscow to attend the wedding of a fellow ex-Marine to a Russian woman. The charges came a day after the U.S. ambassador to Russia, John Huntsman, met Whelan at the Lefortovo prison in Moscow. Whelan, who has denied the charges, could face up to 20 years in prison if found guilty.
U.S. Democrats swept back to power Thursday in the House of Representatives with veteran Nancy Pelosi at the helm, but they came face to face with what may be a new divided government, normal in Washington, legislative gridlock. After a historic opening session of the 116th Congress, in which Pelosi was elected as Speaker for the 2nd time in her storied career, lawmakers took aim at a bipartisan priority of ending an embarrassing partial government shutdown that was stretching into its 13th day. The House passed 2 measures that would reopen government agencies whose funding had lapsed but provided no money for a border wall demanded by Donald Trump. Trump has demanded that Congress approve $5.6 billion for construction of a wall on the southern U.S. border with Mexico, an oft-repeated pledge after his 2016 presidential campaign.
Congratulations, Madam
The bills that passed the House contain no wall funding.
Afford to go without a paycheck
The
anymore.
president cannot hold public employees hostage because he wants to have a wall that is not effective in terms of its purpose, not cost effective in terms of what the opportunity cost it is of federal dollars to spend. And the president has said Mexico's going to pay for this. Come on, let's anchor ourselves into reality. Mexico is not going to pay for this wall, so no.
So I congratulate Nancy. Tremendous, tremendous achievement. And I just wanted to explain to folks that I'm with on the dais, people I've known very well over the last 2 years, people that have been extremely supportive of what we're doing on the border. They're tough, they're smart, they think, they love our country, and also say a few words about the wall, about, you can call it a barrier, you can call it whatever you want, but essentially we need protection in our country. We're going to make it good. The people of our country want it. I have never had so much support as I have in the last week over my stance for border security, for border control, and for, frankly, the wall or the barrier. I have never had anything like it in terms of calls coming in terms of people writing in and tweeting and doing whatever they have to do. I've never had this much support, and we've done some things that, as you know, have been very popular.
My name is Brandon Jett. I'm the president of the National Border Patrol Council. I've been a Border Patrol agent for 21 years. I can personally tell you from the work that I have done on the southwest border that physical barriers, that walls actually work. You hear a lot of talk from the expert that there are experts that say that walls don't work. I promise you that if you interview Border Patrol agents, they will tell you that walls work. I worked in Naco, Arizona for 10 years. We didn't have physical barriers in Naco, and illegal immigration and drug smuggling was absolutely out of control. We built those walls, those physical barriers, and illegal immigration dropped exponentially. Anywhere that you look where we have built walls, they have worked. They have been an absolute necessity for Border Patrol agents in securing the border. We need those physical barriers, and we appreciate President Trump and all of his efforts in getting us those physical barriers.
Trump's relationship with his Democratic opponents has been stormy since he took office, and few expect things to change significantly now that Pelosi has assumed the role of Speaker. Trump demanded that the new Congress fund a wall on the Mexican border, a demand that has led to a shutdown of the U.S. government that has lasted nearly 2 weeks. The new Democratic-held House passed legislation Thursday night that would end a partial government shutdown. Passage of the spending packages will not move Congress closer to reopening 9 unfunded federal departments for now, as the measures do not include money for President Donald Trump's proposed border wall. He has vowed not to sign them. Facing Trump's veto threat, the Senate will not waste its time to pass the House proposal, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said Thursday. It leaves lawmakers and the White House no closer to breaking an impasse over the border barrier as the government shutdown nears the end of its 13th day.
Meanwhile, at a press conference, Speaker Nancy Pelosi reaffirmed her commitment that any federal funding towards a border wall would be a non-starter for Democrats. She said, quote, "A wall is an immorality," and described President Trump as a master of diversion. Take a look.
Nancy Pelosi, I extend to you this gavel. Thank you.
ayes are 239 and the nays are 192. The joint resolution is passed.
It's a wall between reality and his constituents, his supporters. He does not want them to know what he's doing to Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security in his budget proposal. He does not want them to know what he's doing to clean air and clean water and the rest in his Department of Interior and of EPA. He does not want them to know how he is hurting them, so he keeps the subject on the wall. He's a master of diversion.
Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a New York Democrat and the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez youngest woman ever to be elected to Congress, was officially sworn in as a member of the 116th Congress on Thursday. Here's more.
In other news, Brazil's new far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro, said he was open to discussing his country hosting a U.S. military base in the future, underlining his stated desire for closer ties with America. He said, depending on what might happen in the world, who knows if we might have to talk about that subject in the future. The 63-year-old former paratrooper who took office this week told SBT television Bolsonaro has pledged a new direction for Brazil away from its years of centrist and leftist politics that sought an independent path from the United States, which played a preponderant role in Latin America during the Cold War. He told U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Wednesday that their two countries now are friends and has aligned himself with Washington by expressing hostility to Chinese investment in Brazil and against the authoritarian regimes of leftist-ruled Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. In an interview, his first since becoming leader of Latin America's biggest economy, Bolsonaro said he was concerned about Russian Air Force participation in military drills in Venezuela in early December. He said, "We know what the intentions of the government of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro are, and Brazil must be concerned about that." Bolsonaro, who has expressed nostalgia for the 1964 to 1985 military dictatorship that ruled Brazil with the approval of the United States, said that the country's armed forces had been abandoned for the past 2 decades because, quote, "they are the last obstacle to socialism." The new president has vowed to eradicate the centrist and leftist politics of previous governments, especially those of the Workers' Party that governed between 2003 and 2016.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Colombian President Ivan Duque discussed Wednesday how to help restore democratic rule to crisis-racked Venezuela. Pompeo followed up a trip to Brazil to meet with new far-right President Jair Bolsonaro with a visit to Colombia for talks on the migrant exodus from neighboring Venezuela and its regime led by President Nicolas Maduro.
Conversations today covered a broad range of how we may collaborate with regional and international partners to help those who are fleeing Venezuela and return Venezuela to its democratic heritage.
Todos los países que compartimos el valor de la democracia debemos unirnos para rechazar la dictadura de Venezuela y hacer todos los votos necesarios y hacer todos los esfuerzos necesarios para que se restablezca la democracia y el orden constitucional.
Pompeo praised Colombia for its support of the non-million Venezuelans that have crossed the border and fled the crisis caused by the Maduro regime's authoritarian rule or misrule. According to the United Nations, 2.3 million Venezuelans have escaped poverty and economic meltdown since 2015, as those who remain face shortages of basic necessities such as food and medicine, as well as failing public services including water, electricity, and transport. Pompeo said the U.S. has dedicated almost $92 million in aid to help Colombia deal with its influx of Venezuelan migrants.
Meanwhile, Venezuela's government accused the United States and Colombia of ganging up on President Nicolas Maduro's regime in a bid to deflect attention from their failed anti-drugs policies. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with Colombian President Ivan Duque on Wednesday, as you saw earlier, after which they vowed to help Venezuelans recover their democratic heritage and reject the Venezuelan dictatorship. Now, Caracas responded by blasting that as an, quote, interventionist position designed to subjugate and violate the sovereignty and self-determination of the Venezuelan people. Maduro won an election in 2018 that was branded a fraud by the U.S., European Union, and Organization of American States. The Venezuelan Foreign Ministry said that despite the U.S. maintaining at least 7 military bases in Colombia and having squandered billions of dollars in the supposed fight against drug trafficking, the plantations and production of illicit drugs in Colombian territory have increased dramatically in the last few years. Maduro has accused Colombia and Brazil of collaborating with Washington to overthrow and assassinate him, although both neighboring South American countries have dismissed any suggestions of a military intervention. Venezuela is in the midst of a 4-year recession and economic crisis. The International Monetary Fund predicts inflation will reach a mind-boggling 10 million% this year that has provoked a mass exodus of migrants.
6 people, including a child, died after a blast took place inside a ceiling fan-making unit in West Delhi's Moti Nagar on Thursday evening, sending the building crumbling. Police said the workers were painting ceiling fans at the time. Those who were pulled out were taken to Acharya Bhikshu Hospital. Additional DCP West Samir Sharma said some people were still feared trapped inside. The Delhi Fire Services said a blast took place on the 2nd floor of the 2-story building when the compressor of a ceiling fan exploded, trapping several people.
In other news, a serial killer dubbed China's Jack the Ripper for the way he mutilated several of his 11 female victims was executed on Thursday morning. 3 decades after the first murder, the court which sentenced him said. Gao Chengyong, who ran a grocery store with his wife in the city of Baiyin, central China, lived a chilling double life as a murderer whose reign of terror lasted more than a decade. He robbed, raped, and murdered 11 women and girls between 1988 and 2002 in Gansu and the neighboring Inner Mongolia region. In March 2018, he was found guilty by the Bayan City Intermediate People's Court and handed death sentences for both robbery and intentional homicide and lesser sentences for rape and dishonoring corpses. Gao targeted young women wearing red and followed them home, often cutting their throats and mutilating their bodies, according to state media reports. The youngest victim was 8 years old. Some victims had their reproductive organs removed. The Beijing Youth Daily said when Gao was arrested in 2016, police had been hunting Gao for years. Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Tungkulin ng MTRCB ang mag-provide na appropriate ratings sa lahat ng TV shows. Para ugaliin ng pamilya ang responsableng panonood. Teamwork tayo, parents!
Rated G, good for all. Oops, rated PG.
Dapat may mga magulang para sagutin ang mga tanong ng kabataan.
Grabe, rated SPG, maselan!
Higpitan ang paggabay.
Pag rated MTRCB, rated responsable.
Events happen around us all the time. In our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Former Nissan Chairman Carlos Ghosn is likely to appear in a Japanese court next Tuesday to hear the reasons for his detention after his lawyers deployed a little-used article of the Constitution. The shock move was the latest in a series of unexpected twists in a case that has gripped Japan and the business world since the once revered auto tycoon was arrested on his private jet at a Tokyo airport on November 19. The Tokyo District Court said his hearing would start at 10:30 a.m. in its courtroom, with Ghosn expected to appear. Article 34 of Japan's Constitution stipulates that no person shall be arrested or detained without being at once informed of the charges against him or without the immediate privilege of counsel. Nor shall he be detained without adequate cause, and upon demand of any person, such cause must be immediately shown in open court in his presence and the presence of his counsel, it says. Ghosn is spending the beginning of 2019 in detention after the court on New Year's Eve extended his detention through to January 11 on allegations of aggravated breach of trust. He was rearrested over these allegations on December 21, dashing his hopes of being home for Christmas. Since his shock arrest on November 19, the case has shown a light on the Japanese legal system, which has come in for some criticism internationally. Authorities are pursuing 3 separate lines of inquiry against the 64-year-old Franco-Lebanese-Brazilian executive involving alleged financial wrongdoing during his tenure as Nissan chief. They suspect he conspired with his right-hand man, U.S. Executive Greg Kelly, to hide away around half of his income, some 5 billion yen, or that's $44 million, over 5 fiscal years from 2010. They also allege he underreported his salary to the tune of 4 billion yen over the next 3 fiscal years, apparently to avoid criticism that his pay was too high.
Apple has been ordered to remove some iPhone models from its stores in Germany over a patent dispute with chip giant Qualcomm. A court ruling in Munich on December 20 found Apple had infringed patents on power-saving technology. On Thursday, Qualcomm paid 1.3 billion euros bond, allowing the ban on iPhone 7 and 8 models to go ahead. The bond will fund damages awarded to Apple if the iPhone maker wins its appeal against the injunction. The German case is Qualcomm's 3rd attempt at blocking the sale of iPhones. The 2 Californian tech giants have been locked in a long-running battle over patents and royalties that has played out in courts and administrative bodies worldwide. At the heart of the dispute in the German case are chips made by one of of Apple suppliers used in iPhones, with both parties at loggerheads on how the chips actually work, according to the court. Among the functions of the chip is the conservation of battery power. The Munich court said it had to go with Qualcomm's explanation of how the chip worked, as Apple would not give details on its functioning, citing the industrial secrecy interests of its supplier.
Britain's two biggest airports, Heathrow and Gatwick, are investing in anti-drone technology following severe disruption at Gatwick caused by drone sightings in the run-up to the holidays. The British Army was deployed to London Gatwick on December 20 after the airport grounded all flights, leaving tens of thousands of passengers stranded over some of the busiest days of the year. A Gatwick airport spokesman, I quote, "We have invested several million pounds in providing ourselves with the equipment and the technology that the armed forces deployed over the holidays." He said investment was made in the days immediately after the disruption, but declined to give details, saying only that it had equivalent capabilities to the technology used by the military. Two people, a middle-aged couple who lived near Gatwick, were arrested over the suspected criminal use of drones, but later released without charge. The police were criticized for their handling of the incident after a detective admitted it was a possibility that no drones had actually been in the area, despite the discovery of a damaged device near the airport perimeter.
All right, EBC American Samoan correspondent Arian Torres-Suan takes us to Fagatogo Market, where you can take your family and friends to enjoy some live music, handicrafts, and of course, some of the island's favorite food. Take a look.
American Samoa is a U.S. territory covering 7 South Pacific islands and atolls. Tutuila is the largest island, and it's home to the capital of Pango Pango. Today, I am going to take you to the market of American Samoa. You can see the different types of staple food that the Samoans really love to eat, like Samoan taro, bananas, sweet potatoes, taro, coconuts, and even this cocoa fruit. They use it to make a coco Samoa for their coco Elisa, or in Tagalog, champorado. Inside the market, they also sell politasi, their traditional clothes worn by girls. This headdress is called palefuyoono, which they wear during special events for Siva Samoa or dance. Once you get hungry, don't worry. There are food shops inside the market where you can buy drinks and food like this pancake or Samoan pancake. The ingredients are flour, baking powder, sugar, and water. And sometimes they add mashed bananas to make it more scrumptious.
So be sure to put American Samoa in your list of favorite places to visit this year and check out Fagatogo Market. Reporting from Pango Pango in American Samoa, this is Arian Torres-Suan, 1 with 25.
Iglesia ni Cristo in Queensland, Australia, held an aid to humanity to those affected by the bushfires. Here's Celine Andrews and Lori Kate Salomon.
Last November 2018, unprecedented bushfires affected the Deepwater National Region south of Gladstone. Thousands of people were displaced, hundreds of homes evacuated, and several properties were lost, leaving residents unsure on how to cope with the untimely loss caused by the natural disaster.
Australia is known for its stunning wildlife, rural beauty, and of course the sunshine. Although with the scorching temperatures reaching 35 degrees plus, chances of bushfires are heightened. Here in the town of Gracemere, south of Rockhampton, 200 residents fled their own town after their authorities issued an urgent plea to leave, as a fast-moving and dangerous fire burnt toward the town. To heed the call of the people in need as a result of the bushfires, the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, organizes members to coordinate with the affected communities and prepared for the outreach activity. Church members not only from the state of Queensland but as well from New South Wales and Australian Capital Territory traveled many miles to participate in this meaningful activity.
When we received the instruction from the church administration, and we called immediately the attention of all the ministers in every locale where they assigned, and we instructed them to encourage the brethren to prepare themselves, especially those things that are needed in this kind of endeavor in the church, the INC giving under the Aid for Humanity. And also we wrote a letter to the church administration to permit us or to allow us to have this kind of a very special activity in the church to share and also to give to give goods to our beloved brethren if they are affected, and also to those who are not members of the church.
Of course, it's very happy. It's great to see the brethren from all of the different congregations. That's you're inspired when you see the brethren together, and especially that they've come so far. And so it's a very happy occasion. And of course, the guests that we've invited, that we're appreciating today for this event, they see that. They see the camaraderie, and then they ask, you know, do they all know each other? And you know, they find out that we're actually from far different congregations, but even though we don't know each other, you know, really well, but just the fact that we're brothers and sisters in the faith, that comes across our camaraderie and brotherhood and how happy we are to see each other. So I think this is a good event to introduce to them about the Church of Christ, and of course that the church is helping them in their recovery from the calamity that they faced.
Residents received bags filled with grocery items and fuel vouchers. The volunteers and heroes were also recognized to show appreciation of their services during the calamity. A special program was also prepared to uplift the morale of the community by means of inspirational performances by the church members.
Such outreach activity is indeed another testament that no matter where calamity strikes, the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, is always ready to extend assistance and lend a helping hand. The church members truly exemplified unity not only with their church leadership, but also in helping communities in need.
My overall impression of the event today is really good. It's really uplifting, and you have an amazing group of people, and seeing the video of what you have done around the world, that poem that Zita read out about the volunteers, it applies to your members who volunteer to spend their time helping others as much as it does to us.
Thank you. So, any message for the members of the Church of Christ?
A message for members of the Church of Christ. From what I've seen, you people are a group of people who do a wonderful thing. You're a group of people who work throughout the world. And really, until I started doing some research before today, most of your work goes unheralded. People do not see or do not know just what you actually do. And it's brought a new view of people.
Reporting from Gracemere, Queensland, Australia, I'm Celine Ryan Andrews and Laurie Kate Solomon, and we are One with 25.
Stay tuned for more news when Eagle News International returns.
The latest news and information here and abroad. In Aguila, Palita, track the latest happenings in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Be aware of important events in Asia, in ASEAN in Focus, and be updated in the biggest news around the world in Eagle News International. Tune into Mata ng Agila, and get the day's headlines and news that are sharp, accurate, and objective. Only here at Net 25.
Dresses po kasi at saka jewelries, any time of the year po yan. Kahit hindi mabenta ngayon, susunod po pwede. Masipag at syaga lang eh. Pag masipag ka po, ayun, paikutin yung pera. So, makakaipon ka po talaga. When you love what you're doing, parang wala na po yung pagod eh. Kasi masaya ka at the end of it, like, wow, okay. Marami nag-order, and then fulfilling kasi po, syempre hawak ko yung oras ko.
Ini-enjoy ko lang siya. Naging hobby ko lang po yan. No? Pero nung lumabas kami sa TV, ang dami nagka-interest. Tapos yun na nga po, nakikita ko, isa sa magandang solusyon. Lalo na sa panahon ngayon na ang tao ay puro gadget na. Ang kagandahan dito, kahit taon siya nasa loob ng bahay o opisina, buhay po yung halaman natin. So napakalit ng puhunan, pero napakaganda ng kitaan. At ang kagandahan niya po, nagiging environmentalist tayo.
Ayun.
Isa yun sa malaking tulong, no? Malaking tulong sa kalikasan. Kaya yung advocacy namin, sa kalikasan, kalusugan, kabuhayan.
Welcome back. China's lunar probe sends back its first photos of the far side of the moon. Take a look. A Chinese lunar rover landed on the far side of the moon on Thursday in a global first that boosts Beijing's ambitions to become a space superpower. The Chang'e 4 probe touched down and sent a photo of the so-called dark side of the moon to the Qichao satellite, which will relay communications to controllers on Earth, according to China's National Space Agency on its website. Beijing is pouring billions into its military-run space program with hopes of having a crewed space station by 2022 and of eventually sending humans to the moon. The Chang'e 4 lunar probe mission was launched in December from the southwestern Xichang Launch Center. It is the second Chinese probe to land on the moon following the U-2 or the Jade Rabbit rover mission in 2013. Unlike the near side of the moon that offers many flat areas to touch down on, the far side is mountainous and rugged. The moon is, quote, tidally locked to Earth in its rotation, so the same side is always facing Earth. Chang'e 4 is carrying 6 experiments from China and 4 from abroad, including low-frequency radio astronomical studies, aiming to take advantage of the lack of interference on the far side. The rover will also conduct mineral and radiation tests, the China National Space Administration has said, according to state news agency Xinhua.
And here's Ben Bernaldez for our sports news.
World number 1 Novak Djokovic won another grueling battle in Doha on Thursday to continue his unbeaten start to the year and progress to the Qatar Open semifinals. The Serb came from a set down just like in his previous match to beat Georgia's Nikola Basilashvili 4-6, 6-3, 6-4 in a match lasting almost 2 hours. Djokovic will play Spain's Roberto Bautista Agut in Friday's semifinal, who beat 3-time Grand Slam winner Stan Wawrinka in straight sets 6-4, 6-4. And in NBA, the Warriors lost a 135-134 overtime stunner to the Rockets on Thursday night at Oracle Arena. After the Dubs held a 20-point lead early in the third quarter, Houston rallied behind James Harden and wound up on top after the teams exchanged leads 5 times in the extra period. The last of which occurred when Harden sank a contested three-pointer with 1.0 seconds left in the extra period. Harden's game winner capped a 44-point, 15 assists, 10 rebounds, a triple-double, his 5th straight game with at least 40 points. The Dubs held the reigning MVP to 13 for 32 shooting on the night, but Harden stepped up when his team needed him most, making 4 3-pointers in the 4th period and overtime. For the Warriors, Stephen Curry had 35 points and 6 assists, while Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson each had 26 points. Draymond Green added 9 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists, and Kevin Looney started strong with 7 of the Dubs' first 9 points, finishing 12 points and 7 boards. Meanwhile, these are the results of the other games today in the NBA. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez, and I'm on with 25.
All right, in other news, in the United Kingdom, Iglesia Ni Cristo members held a food fair themed Hyper Noodle. 15 different types of noodles, mostly around Asia, and 1 pasta booth. The booths were decorated by original manga-style artworks, created also by INC youth members. JD Season reports.
Hi, I'm JD and I'm here at Hyper Noodle, organized by the INC members from the United Kingdom. I will be tasting 15 types of noodles, mostly around Asia, and 1 pasta booth. Lucky me, let's get started on the booths. Each booth has a specific country based on the noodle dishes commonly eaten around the world. From tasty pho from Vietnam, udon from Japan, pad thai from Thailand, and palabok from Philippines, visitors are introduced to the flavors around the world, but also the global and charitable works of the Iglesia Ni Cristo. INC members from Heathrow were able to invite friends and visitors, most importantly sharing faith and food. Hi, I'm JD Season here in the United Kingdom Heathrow event called Hyper Noodle, and I am one with 25.
Thank you, JD.
Thanks, JD. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Almo Angeles, and we're one with 25.